Welcome to the Get Trauma Informed podcast, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of trauma, its pervasive impact, and the journey towards holistic recovery and realignment. If your radiance has ever felt muted, like I and thousands of others, you're in the right place to reignite your inner light. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast. So on today's episode, we have an amazing, incredible guest here today, Jill Schultz. She is a best-selling author, a serial entrepreneur, a disruptor, and a speaker. I love your energy. How are you today?
I am amazing. And I'm so grateful that you and I were connected so that we can have this conversation because, we get to start normalizing this topic. It's a taboo topic. And we get to be the people that share it with people so that they can know that they're not alone and they can start feeling, the self-love and the self-forgiveness that we get to have around this topic. So thank you for the space.
Yes, yes. I love that we're going to have a transparent conversation because like you said, it's so important that and I say we because I'm a survivor turned thriver as well and still working on my recovery every day. So I just love the fact that we come together and that we learn that we're not in it alone. I think that is so important to not feel alone and also to feel safe.
Yeah.
So again, thank you. One of the questions that we start the podcast off with is, what does Get Trauma Informed mean to you?
Oh, I love that, especially because this is exactly what we get to talk about today. I remember when I was doing some very deep transformational work around my shame. I had a woman tell me, you need to educate yourself around this topic because I felt so alone and so ashamed and thought I was the only little girl who ever did anything like this. And when she's like, you need to get information, you need to educate yourself on this. And it didn't land for me until later when I surrendered into what God was asking me to do. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to inform people that what we're talking about today is more common than you can imagine, but nobody's talking about it. So we get to have the conversation. We get to open up that space so that people do start to get to do start getting informed about this topic. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and being aware. When I first started to express and talk about, my trauma, I was told, why are you talking about your stuff? And I said, well, if you don't talk about it, you get sick, and that's the
yeah,
only way to work through it is to have these conversations.
yeah.
And so, if you like, share as much of your story as you're willing to share, and we're here.
Yeah, I thank you. And I'm excited to be able to do this with you. I always like to do a little pre-setting of the stage because, this is a taboo topic and people aren't talking about it. So if anything that I say today triggers you in any way, if you're like, oh my God, that's my story and I've never dealt with it, or that happened to me and you haven't forgiven the person, anything at all, please go to my website and it's just how my name is listed on here, jilleschultz.com. And there's a whole resource section there where you can get anonymous help. You can call any of these hotlines and talk about it because it's really important to me that you are safe and protected. So I just wanted to put that out there to begin with. And I also want people to know too, I try and bring some playfulness to my life now. And so today, if we get a little silly, even though this is a heavy topic, I get to bring lightness to it now because I have done so much work around it that the shame does not have power over me anymore. And, if you and I had had this conversation a year ago, we wouldn't be doing it without me crying the whole time. But because I've said it over and over again, and because I finally figured out that I was worth healing, on the other side of that is magical. So, um, just know that I'm not being glib. I'm not trying to, you know, create any other sort of story around this except for I've done the work. I'm in the place where sometimes I get to be silly and playful. But So I was molested when I was around 3 or 4 years old, and I'm so grateful for the Me Too movement because I feel like people are way more able to talk about sexual trauma right now than they ever were before. But where my story takes a little turn and what's not being talked about is because of what somebody taught me to do as a very little girl. Started innocently and curiously experimenting with other children. And I lived with debilitating shame for 41 years because I thought I was the only little girl who had ever done anything like that. And so I'm here bearing my soul to save yours, really putting it out there and vulnerably sharing with you that, yes, I acted out with other children when I was little because somebody taught me to do it. And, kids only do what they're taught to do. And it felt good. And so you would seek it out. And so, you know, now I want to be here and I want to collapse time for people. I don't want people to have to live for 41 years with this debilitating shame because you feel like you're alone. You're not alone. It's quite common. People just aren't talking about it.
Wow. And it's so good and it's so brave of you to be able to put a voice to what people are they're suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for this time to be able to share that and to be able to openly, say this is what happened and also to share what happens after that,
Yeah.
and also to pull that veil of shame off so that we can get down to the root and actually heal and
Yeah.
recover,
Yeah.
and then have a beautiful life. I love what you said about on the other side
It's
is
magic.
peace. It's
Yeah.
magic.
Oh, I just got full body chills when you said peace because I've written a book. It's called Liberated, Releasing the Dark Cloud of Shame. And I titled it that because I lived with a shame cloud. I had this morning, noon, and night. I had this oppressive shame that just was looming down on me. And after doing all the work that I've done to not only forgive myself, but finally love myself. I'm 56 now. I didn't love myself until I was 51 years old. And now I look for that cloud and it's gone.
Wow.
And now I have this blank canvas where I get to co-create every single day of my life with God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. I call God, God. I get to manifest and create this magical life for myself because I no longer have that oppressive feeling and holding me back from me being the magical creature that I was created to be.
That is so amazing, so amazing. And you just said, if for people that are listening to the podcast, even at an earlier age, because, I'll be 58 this year. And it was this year that all of my pieces came back together from my trauma.
Yeah.
And when you said that peace is a peace that does definitely surpass all understanding. You have such an amazing glow, and I love it. And now you're putting a voice to that glow. So again, I'm not gonna. I can't thank you enough for being that transparent and being able to share your story.
Thank you. This might sound silly, but I've done probably 60 podcasts in the last year. And thank you for doing this with me now because April is a very important month. It is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. So I'm so grateful that you were willing to air this in
Yes,
April. I totally just forgot what I was gonna say.
it's
Oh,
okay.
I know what I was going to say.
Okay.
You and I both know that doing these podcasts, you don't know who you're touching. You don't know whose lives you're affecting because you don't know who's watching it. So I'm so grateful for you saying thank you to me because sometimes I'm like, is this even important for me to be talking about anymore? Because I've lost so much of the shame and it's lost so much of its power over me. I'm like, is this really important for me to be talking about? So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I appreciate hearing that.
It is very, very important that you are speaking your truth and that you are sharing because there are so many people. And it is, I'm glad you brought that point up because it's sort of like when you've recovered from something, you still remember, but you're not in that pain point anymore. As painful as it is, you're past it. So you're in the afterglow of it all, right? So you're in the new space. So
Yeah.
you do sometimes tend to feel like, should I still be talking about this? Is this something
Mhm.
but no, that I learned that my pain was not in vain. For years I searched, like, why is it all so much pain, and why is it
Yeah.
so hard? And then once I pulled all those shattered pieces back together and was able to go through all of my years and years of training, and I thought I was training to help other people, but I had to recover and realign myself first.
Yeah.
And so now it is so powerful when I hear feedback. And I thought the same thing, like trauma, in my family, some of my family members, why are you doing this in trauma? Because nobody's really screaming that people are suffering in silence. And if
Yeah.
you feel alone in it, you isolate, and it makes
Yeah.
it even worse. So when you can show the beautiful outcomes, then you give people hope that I can also have this recovery, this realignment. Life is not just in this little box for me. So I just encourage you to keep doing the beautiful work that you're doing and sharing this is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and I like that you said that in the box, because when you're in that shame and in that pain, you're so in this just oppressive space of not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and not thinking, how can I ever get past this? And if you don't mind, I want to share this because I think it's really important for people to know how important it is to get your story out there, to start talking about it. And I remember when I was 33, I was blessed with my first business, and I was in a community of women who really brought it to my attention that I was not connecting with men. And I remember, like, a man would walk in the room and look at me, and I'd immediately look down. And it took me a long time to figure out why I was doing that, but it finally occurred to me. I'm like, I didn't want a man to see me, because I thought if a man knew what I had done, how could he love me? And now I'm like, how can he not love me, knowing, the powerful purpose that I have in my life right now? But that led me to go to therapy. And I remember, and if this is you, I know you just have that pit in your stomach and you're like, how can I say these words out loud to somebody? Because you feel like you're alone. You feel like you're the only person who's ever done anything like this. And I promise you, whatever your secret is, and your secret may not be related to sexual trauma, but everybody has a secret. Everybody has something that they're ashamed of that's holding them back. And I remember going in and thinking, how can I say these words out loud? Because I thought of myself as a monster. I thought I was a sexual predator. As a little girl, I thought I was a sexual predator and having that deep shame. But every single time, and the first time that I was able to say those words out loud to a professional or to somebody that you trust, the level of kindness and understanding and compassion that was on the other side of me saying those words out loud, those words that had kept me in prison for so long, to this day is just magical and beautiful to me. Because whatever you have made up about what somebody's going to think about you if you share your shameful secret is a lie. It's a lie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You get to shed the shame and manifest the magic. And, talking about how we don't know who we're touching, whose lives we're touching. My new thing that I'm asking people is, if you are watching this and I touched your life in any way, please, on social media, somewhere where I can see you, just do hashtag shed the shame. Like, this is what I get to create so that I know that I'm making a difference. So I just veered off on that little tangent
No,
real
no,
quick.
no, no. That's
But
wonderful, because these become movements, just like Get Trauma Informed has become a movement, because trauma comes in so many different faces, so many different facets, so many different ways it shows up. And the message that I'm perpetuating out here is that if we don't recover that, if we don't heal it, if we keep pressing it down and suppressing it, it's going to show up, because it's progressive. Trauma is progressive. It'll show up, and it'll show up, and you'll react or overreact to something, and people will look at you like, why is she overreacting to maybe
yeah,
stumping your toe or somebody cutting you off in traffic, but you're going way over there? That's because you have all this unresolved trauma that's just been sitting there brewing, and you
yeah,
thought it was covered up, but it's never masked, because it's progressive. So
Yeah.
again,
Just festering deep down.
it is.
Yeah.
And when you go in your own secret closet or your own quiet space, it always shows up because it's always talking to you. It's always there. So
That was my shame cloud. Yeah, it was
yes,
always there, just looming. And oh, yeah, I'm so grateful that I was brave and courageous enough
right.
to know that I get to heal and I get to get better and I get to leave that behind so that I can create this beautiful life. Yeah.
I love that. And that picture that you're painting for, and I'm visual. So the picture of serenity that you're painting, it also paints that this is possible for me too. And that's what
Yeah.
I want our listeners to get. This is possible for you too. And
Absolutely.
so you've already talked about, and you might want to elaborate a little bit on it, but how has trauma empowered and inspired you?
Oh, well, you said something earlier about, why am I in so much pain? Why is this happening? And you realize that it was for a purpose. And your purpose is to help set people free from trauma. And that's the same thing for me. Like now I get to look at it as a gift. And so crazy to think about, even 2 years ago, me saying that, oh my gosh, I get to see this as a gift so that I get to help empower people to get set free and to heal from the pain. So that's really the huge positive swing that this has had on me, is the fact that now I get to, oh my God, like 2 years ago, if you had told me that I got to be the poster child for talking about little kids who are acting out with other kids, I would have just, I don't even know what I would have done. But now I'm like, yay me. God picked me to do this. And if this is your story, you get to hop on. You get to come with. You also get to be impactful. You have a completely different circle of influence than what I have. So, this isn't just a job for one person. This gets to be a movement. We get to normalize this conversation, because
Absolutely.
it is everywhere.
Absolutely. And it also gives an out for parents that may be faced with that situation with their children and don't know what to do, or some parents shame their children and not, in essence of thinking that they're correcting them instead of embracing some type of therapy or
Yes,
coaching, or and helping them to understand that. So that shame is generational. It's kind of poured on top of people.
absolutely.
And I think this is a great way to say, wait, pump the brakes. There's another way, there's a healthier way to help us get this message out, and a healthier way to help our children as well. So I just think that's great. The other question would be, what would you say to someone faced with the trauma or faced with this situation? What would you say to them?
Yeah, just you get to be brave and courageous. You are worth doing the work to heal. And it's hard AF. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it is hard, but the reward on the other side of it is like, if somebody had written a book and had been having these conversations when I was younger, my life would be different today. So now is your time, because I know if this is your story, you've been hiding it for a long time and you've been avoiding it. You've been pushing it down. But now's the time that you get to face it and you get to own it and you get to stop being a victim and start being a victor.
That is so wonderful. That is so powerful, so powerful. Wow. I thank you for being so courageous today. I thank you for your beautiful glow, for the beautiful picture, the serenity that you painted. You did such an amazing job with painting the picture of serenity on the other side of recovery, on the other side of realigning. And I say bringing your shattered pieces back together and showing up in the world as full, just as your full purposeful self. I think that is just so amazing.
Were you the one that used the term soul fragmentation?
Yes.
I wrote
Yes.
it down because
Yes.
that explains it to a T. What happens to you when you do go through trauma? Like a piece of your soul breaks off. And so we get to do the work to heal that and to bring all those pieces back together. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're working on the pathway to recovery. It's a collaborative work. And we're looking at a chapter being dedicated to soul fragmentation because there is work that needs to be done behind it. And I'll tell you the piece on the other side of that. And a lot of us don't even, because I say us, I didn't understand. I did all my work on my trauma and healing my physical and psychological trauma. I did all the work, but there was still a piece missing. And
Yeah.
that was that piece that needed to come back together.
Yeah.
So yes.
It just makes me have this, I just feel this beautiful energy around that word for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Yes.
You said it. I had a visceral reaction. I was like, that's totally it. It's totally
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So is there anything that you would like to leave everybody with today? I mean, this has been I feel the peace. I mean, and energy is everything.
Mm.
Energy is everything. And I just feel such a serenity and such a peace. And that is my prayer that we've conveyed that to the listeners today, that there
Yeah.
is a sense of peace that you can obtain when you do your work.
Yeah, thank you. There's a couple things, if you don't mind. Number one, my favorite saying in the whole wide world is Neil Donald Walsh, and I butchered it. I don't say it how he does, but it's life happens outside your comfort zone. So we get to look at that one thing that's holding you back in your life, and you get to face it head on, and you get to say, you don't own me anymore, because shame can't live in the light. So let's look at it. Let's bring it out in the light. And I'm really excited. I have been fighting God for a very long time around this. I'm like, I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. Well, I got a divine download about 3 weeks ago, and all I heard was shed the shame, manifest the magic. And I am creating a course right now called Shed the Shame, Manifest the Magic. So my goal is to have it ready the beginning of May. So please go to my website. And like I said, it's jilleschultz.com. You can buy my book there. You can see all the podcasts that I've done there. There's lots of information. There's the Get Help resources. And we will be posting Shed the Shame, Manifest the Magic. If you want to be part of that program to get past whatever your shame is and get into manifesting and creating a magical life for yourself, I'd love for you to join me there.
Thank you so much. And that's what this podcast is about. It's not just about, it's about bringing awareness, but it's also bringing the resources for us to actually put that self-care plan together and to be able to move forward. So I thank you for sharing that. And I thank you for just for showing up today. I appreciate you. Thank you so
It's
much.
my pleasure. I had a girl crush on you from the first time we met, so there's no way I wouldn't have shown up today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye.
It's time to buckle up. No more suffering in silence. Our Power Pack journey to recovery and realignment starts now. Remember, you are collateral damage on someone else's warpath. Trauma is not your fault. Recovery, however, is your responsibility. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast.